Hey everybody, I wanted to take a little time before we finish up this week to go over using StatCrunch to do confidence intervals. So I'm going to look at an example here where I'm going to ask you to find the 90% confidence interval for a population proportion. I'll just say for a proportion. If a sample of 240 items gives 186 successes. So StatCrunch is accessible right in our MyMathLab website. So if you're in MyMathLab for this course, you're on the home page of MyMathLab in the statistics course. On the left side here, you see StatCrunch. So go ahead and click that. It's going to give you some options here. You want to see the data sets from your textbook? No, we can get our data in there from ourselves. Here it says, visit the StatCrunch website. So that's what we're going to click on there. It's going to take us to a spot where it's going to ask us about licensing, but we're okay because this textbook comes with a temporary license for StatCrunch. So go ahead and hit Open StatCrunch, and here it is. So again, what we were trying to find was the 90% confidence interval for a proportion for a sample of 240 gives 186 successes. So in StatCrunch here, we're going to go to Stat, and we're going to go to Proportions, and one sample. So Proportions, one sample. And now with data would be if we had all 240 responses. We don't have those. So we're going to go with Summary. And it gives us our window where it asks us what we want to put in here. So I'm going to put in we had 186 successes out of 240 observations. That's their sample size of 240. Now, this first click checkbox here is for a hypothesis test. That's not what we're doing. That's what we're going to do in week 10. We're doing a confidence interval, and we want to change this to 0.90. That's for 90%. And this is a standard wall. Everything we do is going to be a standard walled confidence interval. We're not going to do the Agresti-Cool method at all. So we leave that set as just standard wall. And we hit compute. And here we get there's our interval right there. It goes from 0.7307, we're rounding at 4 decimal places there, to 0.8193. There is that interval, confidence interval for a proportion. Now let's find a confidence interval for a mean. Let's find the 95% confidence interval for a mean if a sample of 80 items gives a mean of 125 and standard deviation of 20. So again, let's go to StatCrunch here. We're going to go to Stat. Now, this is a T-stat because the standard deviation we're given is the sample standard deviation, not the population standard deviation. So if we have the sample standard deviation, we need to use a T-stat. So this is a T-stat, one sample. And with the summary again, we don't have all the individual responses. We just have the mean of the sample. So our sample mean was 125. Our sample standard deviation was 20, and our sample size was 80. Let me double check those numbers. Yeah, mean of 125, sample size of 80. There we go. We're looking for a confidence interval, and we do want a 95%. So we just go ahead and hit compute. There's a confidence interval. It is a lower limit of 120.55 to an upper limit of 129.45. This is a t-interval because we had the population standard deviation. If for some reason we're given, this is a t-interval because we had the sample standard deviation. If for some reason we are given the population standard deviation, then we can use a z statistic. Let's find the 98% confidence interval for a mean. If a sample of 40 items gives a mean of 57, and here's the key, the population standard deviation is known to be 17. So now, if we go into StatCrunch, look at stat, z-stats, one sample again with summary. We don't have all the individual data values. Our sample mean, I'm going to go back to the problem here, make sure I got it right. Mean was 47, standard deviation of 17, sample size of 40. So mean of 47, standard deviation of 17, 40. Was that 47 or 50? 57, sorry. Mean of 57. Let me change that. Again, we're looking for a confidence interval. I asked for a 98% confidence interval. So this has to get changed to 0.98. And we compute. There's our interval. We go from 50.75, if we round that to 2 decimal places, to 63.25. And that's simple as that to do confidence intervals in StatCrunch. And again, to find StatCrunch, if you're in my math lab from the home page, just on the left, let the home page load here. On the left side of the screen, you just click StatCrunch. You click go to the StatCrunch website, and then you click open StatCrunch. And that's it. So that'll take you there to get to those confidence intervals. We're going to use it next week for hypothesis testing as well. Since I can't download the Excel stat on my computer to do that, and some of you might have issues with that as well. If you do download the Excel stat and you want to learn how to do it, obviously I can't show you because I don't have it on this computer, but there's a ton of YouTube videos out there. If you just YouTube Excel stat and then whatever the function is you're trying to do, it's right there for you. So with that, we'll see you next week for hypothesis test.